Nana's betrayed dreams ***. Nana in Florida sold her beach cottage to fund her daughter's nursing school. Once successful, the daughter ghosted her, forcing Nana into a Medicaid nursing home. Whispering regrets to faded photos. I never thought I'd end up whispering apologies to faded photographs in a Medicaid nursing home. But here I am, staring at a ceiling with peeling paint, wondering how my daughter, my own flesh and blood, could vanish after I sold the only home I ever loved to give her the future she begged for. And if you're listening, I want you to know, the betrayal didn't happen in one thunderclap. No, it was slow. Like the tide, soft and sly, stealing sand from under your toes while you stand smiling, thinking you're safe. By the time you realize what's happening, you're knee-deep in the undertow, too tired to fight. But I suppose to tell it right, I need to go back. Back to the warmth before the storm. My little beach cottage in Florida wasn't much to anyone else. The tourists called it quaint when they passed by, as if that word were a kind way to say rundown. The shutters were chipped, the porch sagged just a little on the left, and the salt air had kissed the paint clean off the back door more than once. But to me it was heaven. I raised Lily there. Her first steps were across the same hardwood floors I sanded myself with blistered hands. My late husband, Jack, built the porch railing and carved our initials into the wood the summer before he died. J+M, always. Those letters stayed there, fading under years of sun and sea spray, until the day I left. And God help me, I still see them in my dreams. Every morning, I'd sit on that porch with a mug of coffee, too much cream, too much sugar, Dr. be damned, and listen to the gulls fuss over scraps by the pier. Sometimes Mabel, my neighbor, would shuffle over with her floppy straw hat and her never-ending gossip. She liked to joke that menopause was just puberty with bills. We'd laugh till our sides hurt, two widows laughing in the Florida heat, pretending we weren't just a little bit lonely. But evenings were the hardest. After Jack died, the house was so quiet you could hear the waves thudding against the shore like a heartbeat that wasn't mine. And it was Lily's laugh, Lily's chatter about school, that saved me from drowning in silence. She was all I had. My only child. My reason for clawing through those years of grief. I worked double shifts as a cashier, then cleaned beach rentals on weekends just to keep her in ballet shoes and braces. When she came home crying from high school because she felt like an outsider, I held her till her sobs soaked through my shirt, whispering, "You're meant for more, baby. Don't you let this town tell you otherwise." And she believed me. Or maybe she just needed to. When Lily turned 19, she looked me dead in the eye across our little kitchen table, the one with the uneven leg Jack never fixed, and said, "Mama, I want to be a nurse. I want to help people. But I don't see how I can, not with money the way it is." And I swear in that moment every blister, every sleepless night, every aching joint, it all felt worth it. Because here was my girl, reaching for something good, something noble. So when the thought came to sell the cottage, I didn't push it away. Not even when it ripped my heart out of my chest. I still remember the realtor's polite smile when she walked through the place. She ran her manicured nails along the kitchen counter, as if measuring how much work it'd take to make it market-ready. She called it cozy with potential. Cozy. Potential. Those words stung. Because to me it was history. I packed each box like I was laying pieces of my soul inside. Lily helped a little, but mostly she just cried, hugging me and saying, "Mama, I promise you, once I'm a nurse, you'll never have to worry again. We'll find you something even better." Something even better. The night before the sale, I sat on the porch alone. The air was thick, sweet with jasmine from the neighbor's yard. I traced Jack's carved initials in the railing with my finger. My chest ached so deep I thought it might break me. I whispered into the dark, "Jack, I hope I'm doing right by her. God, I hope I'm not being a fool." And then I cried like a child. Mabel brought a pie that morning. She hugged me so hard I thought my ribs might crack. "You're doing the right thing, sugar. Kids need a hand up. But don't you let her forget what you gave." I laughed it off, but her words stuck. Lily was radiant, though so hopeful, so alive. She clutched my hand and said, "You'll see, Mama. I'll make you proud." And I believed her. With all my heart, I believed her. After the sale, I moved into a modest apartment inland. Nothing near the ocean, no porch, no carved initials. Just 4 beige walls and a carpet that smelled faintly of cigarettes. Lily started her classes, and I told myself every sacrifice was paying off. But the calls, they started to come less often. At first she was just busy with exams. Then, "Clinical hours are crazy, Mama, I'll call you Sunday." But Sunday turned into weeks. I'd sit by the phone, arthritis stiffening my hands, staring at the family photo taped to my fridge. The one of us at the beach, her little arms thrown around my neck, both of us laughing like fools. And I told myself, she's young. She'll come around. There was one bright spot that year, her boy, my grandson Joey. He'd barrel into my apartment like a hurricane, little sneakers squeaking, arms wide. "Nana!" he'd scream, hugging my knees so tight I nearly toppled. I'd bake cookies with him, watch cartoons, and for a while, it felt like family again. But even then, Lily seemed distant, distracted, always on her phone. I brushed it off as stress. After all, nursing school was no joke. Still, a mother knows. And my gut whispered that something was shifting. One night, when the loneliness gnawed too hard, I went to Mel's diner. It was one of those all-night places with red vinyl booths and waitresses who called you Han. I ordered coffee, even though it was nearly midnight, and stared at the steam curling upward. Around me, couples laughed, kids scribbled on placemats, truckers down pie. And I felt invisible, like the world had moved on without me. I remember gripping the mug, my knuckles white, whispering to myself, "Don't be bitter, Mary. You did this for love. You did this for her." But a little ember of anger sparked inside me. Quiet but real. Looking back now, I see the signs. The way Lily avoided eye contact when money came up. The way her husband, Mark, never smiled when I walked in. How she laughed off my aches and pains, telling me, "Oh, Mama, you're tougher than you look." It was all leading somewhere. But in those days, I still believed love was enough to hold us together. And that belief was my undoing. If I'm being honest, part of me still lived back at that beach cottage, even after I sold it. Every morning in that beige apartment, I'd reach for my coffee and feel for the sound of waves I couldn't hear anymore. Funny how your body remembers a rhythm, even when life has ripped it away. And I told myself, this is temporary. Lily will finish school, she'll settle in, and then things will get better. But here's the cruel truth about hope. It can blind you as much as it carries you. At first Lily tried. She'd swing by with Joey, usually in a rush. "Mama, I just came from class. I'm exhausted. Mark's waiting in the car." I'd squeeze her hand and tell her how proud I was, try to feed her leftovers, press cookies into Joey's little fists. She'd kiss my cheek on the way out, her perfume sharp and fleeting, like a memory that never stayed long enough. But over time, those visits felt less like family and more like obligation. I'd ask about her studies, and she'd answer with one-word replies. I'd ask how Mark was, and she'd change the subject. And the silences between us grew louder than any conversation. One evening, after she left in a hurry, Mabel stopped by with her knitting bag. She looked around my apartment and sighed. "This place doesn't fit you, Mary. You're like a seashell washed too far inland." I laughed, but I felt the truth in her words. I didn't tell Lily about the nights I woke up sweating, menopause still gnawing at me even though I was pushing 70. I didn't tell her about the arthritis flares that made opening jars feel like climbing mountains. Instead, I put on a smile. Don't burden her, Mary, I thought. She's building her life. She doesn't need your aches and pains weighing her down. So I turned to small joys. A crossword puzzle with coffee in the morning. A stroll to the thrift store down the block where the cashier called me sweetheart. And when I really needed company, I'd sit on the bench outside my building and watch kids ride their bikes, pretending I was still part of that world. But at night, when the apartment walls pressed in, I whispered to the photos taped above my bed, me, Jack, and baby Lily at the beach. Tell me I did the right thing, Jack. Please. And the photos stayed silent. Sometimes, I'd cling to memories like a lifeline. The 4th of July before I sold the cottage. Now that was a night worth remembering. We'd dragged lawn chairs onto the sand. Joey was just learning to say Nana. And he squealed it over and over like music. Lily sat beside me, her head resting on my shoulder, her laughter mingling with the sound of fireworks. Next year, Mama, she said, I'll be in nursing school. Can you believe it? I kissed the top of her head and whispered, I can believe anything when it's you. That night I felt rich. Richer than I ever would again. As weeks turned to months, I noticed something off in Lily's eyes. A flicker, like guilt she couldn't quite hide. One Sunday, while Joey played with toy cars on the carpet, I asked her straight, Baby, are you okay? You seem far away lately. She stiffened. I'm fine, Mama. Just stressed. Mark says I'm too sensitive, always worrying. But I'm fine. She wasn't fine. I knew it, but I bit my tongue. That night, as I walked her to the door, I overheard her whispering on the phone in the hallway. The words were hushed sharp. I told you she doesn't suspect anything. Stop bringing it up. My stomach dropped. When she caught me watching, she plastered on a smile. Love you, Mama. See you next week. But I didn't sleep that night. When doubts weighed too heavy, I always found myself back at Mel's diner. Something about the neon lights and the clink of dishes made me feel less alone. This time I ordered pie. Cherry with too much whipped cream. The waitress, a woman about my age with tired eyes, poured me coffee and asked, Rough night, hon? I wanted to tell her everything, that I'd sold my home, that my daughter was slipping away, that I was scared the best years of my life were already gone. Instead, I just said, You could say that. She gave me a smile that felt like a mirror. Women like us, we don't need all the details. We can read the grief in each other's faces. The next week, Lily surprised me. She showed up early carrying a bag of groceries. Mama, I thought you could use a little help. I nearly cried on the spot. We cooked together that night, spaghetti with garlic bread just like old times. Joey sat at the table swinging his legs, chattering about school. For a few hours, it felt like family again. When she left, I hugged her tight. You don't know how much this means to me, baby. She smiled, but her eyes darted away. Of course, Mama. You've done everything for me. It was hope. Fragile, but real. That week, I found strength in the small things. A good hair day. A call from an old church friend. Even a silly moment when Mabel and I tried to start a yoga class at the senior center. Her knees popped so loud we laughed till we nearly fell over. Those little joys stitched me together, piece by piece. But beneath it all, the unease lingered. Lily's absences stretched longer. Her words sometimes clipped, sometimes too sweet, like she was covering something. And I couldn't shake the feeling that a storm was brewing just beyond the horizon. Sometimes, late at night, I'd rock in my chair by the window, staring at the streetlight glow. And I'd think about how quickly life turns. How you can go from a home full of love to an apartment full of echoes. And I'd whisper to myself, maybe this is just the in-between. Maybe the good days aren't gone. They're just waiting for me on the other side of this struggle. But deep down, I feared the truth. That the warmth I'd known was only the calm before the storm. If there's one thing about being a woman past 50, it's this. You stop ignoring your gut. You may brush it aside for a while, try to soften it with excuses, but deep down, you know when something isn't right. And with Lily, my gut was twisting tighter every day. It wasn't just her distance. It was him, Mark. My son-in-law. The man had a way of looking at me like I was an inconvenience he hadn't budgeted for. Polite enough on the surface, but his eyes always seemed to harden when I hugged Joey too long, or when I asked about their bills. One night, after dinner at their place, he pulled Lily aside while he thought I wasn't listening. His voice was low, sharp. Your mother can't keep leaning on us. She needs to figure things out. Leaning? I'd sold my house for her tuition. I wasn't asking for a thing. Not yet, anyway. When I caught Lily's eye afterward, she looked away. that hurt more than his words. Joey, bless his little heart, was the only light in those days. He'd crawl into my lap, sticky with popsicle juice, and say things like, "Nana, when I grow up, I'm gonna buy you a castle." I'd laugh and kiss the top of his head. "I don't need a castle, Joey. Just keep hugging me like that." But kids, they don't understand the storms brewing around them. They just love without conditions. And sometimes, that love was the only thing keeping me breathing. The turning point came one evening when Lily left her phone on my counter while she went to the bathroom. It buzzed, screen lighting up with a message from Mark. "Don't let her guilt you. Remember what we agreed." My chest tightened. I didn't open it. Lord knows I respected her privacy, but those words burned. What we agreed. When she came back, I handed her the phone, forcing a smile. "You left this buzzing, honey." She snatched it quick, too quick. "Thanks, Mama." Her cheeks were flushed, and her hands trembled ever so slightly. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering what secret agreement they had that I wasn't meant to know. To keep from spiraling, I threw myself into little rituals. Morning walks, even when my knees protested. Crocheting lopsided scarves with Mabel. Finding humor in aging, like the time I stood in front of the fridge, hot flash hitting so hard I muttered, "At least I'm my own air conditioner." But sorrow crept in like damp under a door. No matter how much I laughed, there was always the ache of being on the outside of my own daughter's life. I'll never forget the church picnic that summer. The air smelled of barbecue and sunscreen, kids running wild with sparklers while the choir sang hymns under a tent. I spotted Lily across the lawn talking to friends, looking radiant and carefree. For a moment, pride swelled in my chest. That's my girl, I thought. All my sacrifices worth it. But when she introduced me to her friends, she said, "This is my mom, Mary. She's retired now." Retired. Like my whole life was behind me. Like I was just a relic, tucked away. On the ride home, I sat in silence, the taste of coleslaw still sour in my mouth. The weeks after, the visits thinned again. Lily called less, Mark's glances grew sharper, and I felt myself shrinking. One afternoon, I baked a batch of Joey's favorite peanut butter cookies and brought them over. But when I knocked, Mark opened the door, blocking the way. "Now's not a good time," he said flatly. I tried to peek past him, but he stepped forward, closing the space. I forced a smile. "Just wanted to drop these off for Joey." He took the container like it was a burden, muttered thanks, and shut the door before I could even see my grandson. I stood on that porch with my heart in pieces. For the first time, I felt truly unwelcome in my daughter's home. Mabel found me crying on my couch that night. She wrapped me in one of her half-finished crochet blankets and said, "Mary, don't you dare carry this shame. You did right by your girl. If she forgets that, it's on her, not you." Her words were strong, but even she couldn't feel the hollow gnawing at me. I ended up back at Mel's, like always. Ordered coffee I didn't need, stared at the chipped tabletop and muttered, "What did I do wrong, Jack?" The waitress topped off my cup and said softly, "Sometimes we raise them right, Han, and they still lose their way. Don't mean you failed." I nodded, but tears blurred the neon lights outside. By then, the storm was gathering fast. Little things piled up, missed calls, unanswered texts, a canceled birthday visit. And though I still clung to Joey's hugs, to Mabel's laughter, to tiny scraps of joy, I knew deep down, the warmth I'd fought so hard to keep alive was slipping. And the storm, my God, the storm, was about to break wide open. The night before everything started unraveling, I sat in my apartment with the windows open, letting in the humid Florida air. Somewhere outside, a car stereo hummed low. Kids laughed in the distance, and for a moment, it almost sounded like life back at the cottage. Almost. I held an old photo in my lap. Jack with his arm around me. Lily perched on his shoulders, her hair flying wild in the wind. My fingers traced their faces until they blurred with my tears. "Jack," I whispered. "If you can hear me, I hope you're proud of me. I gave her everything. I just don't know if she remembers." The silence that followed was heavier than any answer could have been. The next morning my phone rang. Lily. My heart leapt the way it always did when I saw her name. Mama, she said, her voice rushed. Can you watch Joey tomorrow? Mark and I have an appointment. Of course, baby, I said, already pulling out the cookie recipe. But then I heard it, a muffled voice in the background. Mark's. Sharp, irritated. She'll just get in the way, he muttered, not realizing the phone hadn't fully muted. Lily's voice followed, low but clear. She sold the house, Mark. We owe her. Just let her think she's still needed. My blood went cold. When she dropped Joey off the next day, she was all smiles. Hugged me, thanked me, said she loved me. And I hugged her back, smiling through the crack in my heart. Because what else could I do? Joey clung to me like always, his small arms tight around my neck, whispering, Don't be sad, Nana. I love you. That boy, he saw more than any of us gave him credit for. That night, after Joey went home, I sat at my little table with a cup of lukewarm tea. I stared at the steam, fading fast, and whispered to myself, They don't see me as family anymore. I'm just a duty, a burden. The walls of the apartment seemed to close in, beige and lifeless. I missed the salt air, the porch, the way Jack's initials caught the light at sunset. And for the first time, I felt a chill deep in my bones. Not from age, not from arthritis, but from knowing the storm had already begun, and I was standing right in the path of it. I wish I could say I was wrong, that my fears were just the ramblings of a tired old woman. But the truth is, everything that came after, the betrayals, the silence, the hollow ache of being forgotten, started right there, in that moment. When your own child begins to see you as a debt to be repaid instead of a mother to be loved, well, that's when the tide starts pulling you under. And I didn't even know yet how far I had to fall. People think betrayal comes with fireworks. A slammed door, a screaming match, a line in the sand. But in my life, betrayal came quiet, soft, almost polite, like a hairline crack in the foundation. You don't see it at first. You just notice the draft, the shift, the way the air feels colder than it should. And then before you know it, the whole house caves in. That's how it was with Lily. My 69th birthday was the first time I felt the crack widen. I'd baked my own cake, yellow with chocolate frosting, just like Lily used to beg for when she was little. I set the table with 2 plates, one for me, one for her and Joey. I even lit candles in the window so she'd see them when she pulled into the lot. But the hours passed. My phone stayed silent. Finally, at 9:30, a text buzzed. Sorry, Mama, long shift. Rain check. Rain check. I blew out the candles alone, ate one slice of cake, staring at the empty chair, wrapped the rest in foil and put it in the fridge, even though I knew no one would come. The silence that night was the loudest sound I'd ever heard. The following week, I tried to surprise them, show up with a casserole, like I used to when Lily was young. I told myself maybe she just needed a little comfort food to take the edge off her stress. But when I knocked, it wasn't Lily who answered. It was Mark. His smile was tight, his eyes colder than ever. Mary, you should have called first. I held out the casserole dish like a peace offering. Just thought you could use a hot meal. Behind him, I caught a glimpse of their living room. New leather sofa. A flat-screen TV bigger than my old kitchen table. And Lily, my Lily, sitting there in silk pajamas, sipping wine, laughing at something on her phone. She didn't even look up. Mark took the dish, thanked me like he was checking off a chore, and shut the door before I could step inside. I stood there on the porch, casserole dish gone from my hands, but the weight in my chest heavier than ever. That night, I called Mabel, told her everything. How they had more than enough now. How they acted like I was some stray dog scratching at the door. She sighed. Honey, some kids, they don't know how to hold the love we give. They think it'll always be there, no matter what they do. You're like air to them. Invisible until you're gone. Her words stung, but they rang true. Still, I defended Lily. She's just tired. Nursing's hard work. Mabel was quiet for a long time before she said, "Or maybe she's tired of remembering who held her up when she couldn't stand." That week, I wrote a letter to Lily. "Dear baby girl, I know things feel distant between us. I know Mark doesn't understand me, but I want you to know, I am proud of you. Every sacrifice I made was worth it because it gave you a chance. I don't need riches. I just need to know I still matter to you." I folded the letter, sealed it in an envelope, even put a stamp on it. But I never mailed it. Somehow, I knew the silence on her end would hurt worse than the risk of rejection. A few days later, I went to a little coffee shop downtown. Treated myself to a cinnamon latte, even though my doctor would have scolded me for the sugar. As I stirred the foam, I overheard two young women talking at the next table. One said, "My mom keeps asking for help, but I can't deal with it right now. I'm drowning in work." The other replied, "Yeah, but she's your mom. You only get one." That hit me hard. I wanted to lean over, shake that first girl by the shoulders, and tell her, "You'll regret it. You'll regret every ignored call, every rain check, every time you made her feel small." But I didn't. I just sipped my latte, tears slipping down my cheeks, and whispered, "I hope someone says that to Lily someday." It came 2 weeks later. Lily came by, frazzled, Joey in tow. She dropped him on my couch with his backpack and said, "Can you keep him tonight? Mark and I need some space." "Of course, honey," I said, my heart softening. I made Joey grilled cheese, tucked him into bed, hummed him to sleep like old times. But when Lily came back the next morning, she was sharp, exhausted. "Mama, Mark says you're too involved. He says you don't respect boundaries." The words cut deep. "Too involved? Lily, I barely see you anymore. I'm just trying to help." She sighed, rubbing her temples. "You don't understand, Mama. Things are complicated." I snapped before I could stop myself. "Complicated? You think selling my house so you could go to school wasn't complicated? You think giving up everything wasn't complicated?" Her face flushed red. "Don't throw that in my face. I never asked you to." I slammed my hand on the table. "The hell you didn't." The silence that followed was sharp enough to draw blood. Finally, she grabbed Joey's hand and muttered, "I'll call you later." But she didn't. Not for weeks. During those weeks, I sank lower than I'd admit to anyone. I stopped cooking real meals. Just lived on cereal and toast. My hair went unbrushed some days. My bed stayed unmade. I sat in my chair, staring at the walls, whispering apologies to Jack's picture like he could hear me. Maybe I should have kept the house, I told him. Maybe I should have kept some part of myself. But the truth was I'd given it all away for her. And now, I wasn't sure she even remembered. That's when I realized the crack in the foundation wasn't just about Lily's distance. It was about me. I'd built my whole identity around being her mother, her provider, her safe place. And when she started to pull away, I was left staring at the rubble of my own life, wondering what was left of me. The house was gone. The marriage long buried. My health shaky. And all I had left was a love that no one seemed to want anymore. You can forgive one missed birthday. You can excuse a cold look, or even a slammed door. But when the small things pile up, day after day, you start to wonder if the cracks are really cracks at all. Or if the whole foundation has been rotting for years and you just refuse to see it. That's where I was with Lily. Weeks passed before she came around again. When she finally did, it wasn't the reunion I'd imagined in all those lonely nights. She stepped into my apartment like she didn't want to touch anything. Her eyes flicked around the beige walls, the sagging couch, and I could almost hear her thoughts. She's slipping. She's fading. "Mama," she said briskly, "you should think about downsizing again. Maybe a retirement community. They'd take better care of you there." I laughed bitterly. "Downsize from what, Lily? I'm already living in a shoebox." She shifted uncomfortably. I don't want you to be a burden." That word, burden, it cut through me sharper than any knife. Before she left, Joey ran up and wrapped himself around my waist. "Nana, I drew you a picture. It was a crayon sketch, me, him, and the ocean. He'd even drawn the cottage, with little hearts floating over the roof. I clutched that picture like it was gold. Thank you, baby. It's perfect. Lily barely noticed. She was too busy checking her phone. A few days later, Mabel stopped by with her usual knitting bag. She settled into my chair like she owned it and said, "Mary, I saw Mark at the grocery store today. He was talking to some fella, didn't see me. Said something about how your mama's got to stop expecting things." I blinked. Expecting what? I haven't asked them for a dime. Mabel gave me a long look. Doesn't matter. Some people rewrite the story in their heads so they don't feel guilty. Her words stayed with me all night. The next week, Lily asked me to watch Joey again. I didn't hesitate. Having him in my arms was like medicine. After I tucked him in, I went to grab my purse from the counter, and that's when I heard them outside in the hallway. Mark's voice low but harsh. "She's too attached. She's holding you back." Lily's whisper. "She gave up everything for me, Mark. I can't just cut her off. Mark, she'll survive. She always does. You don't owe her your life." My knees nearly buckled. I leaned against the wall, pressing my fist to my mouth so they wouldn't hear me cry. When they finally came in, I pretended I hadn't heard a thing. I smiled, kissed Lily's cheek, handed Joey over like nothing was broken. But inside, the crack widened into a chasm. Around that time, my body started betraying me too. The arthritis worsened, my blood pressure spiked, and the hot flashes turned into full-blown night sweats that left me drenched. At the doctor's office, the nurse asked gently, "Do you have family to help you manage?" I forced a smile. Of course. My daughter's a nurse. But as the words left my lips, I knew how hollow they were. One Saturday, I decided to do something bold. I called Lily and invited her and Mark for dinner at my place. I cooked pot roast, mashed potatoes, the works, food that used to make her eyes light up. They arrived late. Mark didn't even sit down before announcing, "We can't stay long." Lily picked at her food, barely eating. Mark spent most of the time on his phone. I tried to fill the silence with stories, memories, jokes. But the only sound that seemed to matter was the clock ticking on the wall. When they finally left, I scraped the plates into the trash and cried over the sink. A week later, the apartment complex threw a little block party. Burgers on grills, kids running wild, a local band playing oldies. I stood there with a paper plate of coleslaw, smiling at neighbors I barely knew, pretending I belonged. And then I saw them, Lily and Mark, across the lot, laughing with friends. Carefree. They hadn't even told me they'd be there. For a moment, I thought about walking over, hugging Lily, reclaiming my place in her world. But something stopped me. Maybe pride. Maybe fear of seeing that cold look again. So I turned and went home, my untouched plate still in my hand. That night, I sat on my bed with the lamp casting shadows on the walls. I whispered to the photo of Jack again. "She's slipping away, Jack. And I don't know how to hold her. I don't know if I should." For the first time, I admitted out loud. Maybe love wasn't enough. Maybe sacrifice wasn't enough. Maybe nothing I had left to give would ever be enough. The cracks were no longer cracks. They were gaping holes, swallowing everything I thought I knew about motherhood, about family, about love. And yet, I couldn't let go. Because letting go meant admitting I had given up my home, my future, my heart, for nothing. So I clung tighter. Even as the walls of my life buckled. Even as the storm gathered overhead. I told myself, it can still be saved. She'll remember. She has to. But in the deepest part of me, I already knew. Some betrayals slice clean, like a knife. Others wear you down like water on stone, slow and steady until you're hollowed out. By the time I reached the end of that summer, I wasn't sure which kind mine was. But I knew the shape of the hole it left. It was the shape of my daughter. It was a quiet Sunday when Lily came by. I was sitting on the porch with a chipped mug of diner coffee, watching the birds fight over crumbs I'd tossed out. She stepped onto the porch, her eyes darting everywhere but me. "Mama," she started. "Mark thinks we need some space." The mug nearly slipped from my hands. Space. Lily, I barely see you anymore. She sat beside me, though she perched like the chair might bite. It's just, we need to build our life, Mama. Joey's got school, Mark's working overtime. And you. I leaned in. And me. She hesitated, then said it like she'd rehearsed. You can be overwhelming. That word stung worse than burden. Overwhelming. Like my love was too much, too heavy. I bit down on my tongue so hard I tasted blood. The next time I saw Joey, it was at his soccer game. I'd shown up uninvited, clutching a thermos of lemonade and sitting on the far side of the bleachers. At halftime he ran to me, breathless and sweaty. Nana, don't tell Mommy, but I keep your picture under my pillow. I blinked back tears. Why would you need to hide it, baby? He shrugged, glancing nervously toward the field. Mommy says too much Nana time makes Mark mad. I hugged him tight, whispering, don't you ever feel guilty for loving me? But inside something cracked again. This time it wasn't just my heart. It was my faith that Lily would protect the bond one had with my grandson. Later that week, I sat at Mabel's kitchen table, nursing a mug of tea. You know what I think? Mabel said, slamming down her knitting needles. Mark's scared of how much Joey loves you. Some men want to be the center of everything. They see the grandma, the mama, as competition. I shook my head. But I never wanted to compete. I just wanted to love. Mabel's eyes softened. Love's a threat to some folks, Mary. Especially the ones who don't understand sacrifice. Her words dug deep. One night, I called Lily just to hear her voice. She picked up, distracted. Mama, I can't talk. We're at dinner. I heard Mark in the background, low but sharp. Why is she always calling? Doesn't she get it? Lily's voice turned to ice. Stop calling so much, Mama. It's embarrassing. And just like that, she hung up. I sat there in the dark, phone clutched in my hand, listening to the dial tone. Embarrassing. That's what I'd become. The loneliness drove me to a grief support group at the local church. We sat in a damp basement, folding chairs creaking under us. Some had lost spouses, others children, others themselves. When it was my turn, I cleared my throat. I haven't lost my daughter to death. I've lost her to distance, to ambition, to a man who thinks my love is a nuisance. An older man across the circle nodded. Loss is loss, he said. And grief doesn't care what form it takes. I went home that night with a small flicker of comfort. But the ache remained. One morning, I sat at the diner, stirring cold coffee. The waitress, Patty, noticed my red eyes. You look like you've been through it, hon, she said, sliding me a piece of pie on the house. The words tumbled out of me before I could stop them. I sold my house for my daughter, paid for her schooling, and now she barely calls, barely looks at me. Patty squeezed my hand. You know what my mama used to say? We raise our kids to leave, but not to erase us. Sounds like your girl forgot that second part. I laughed bitterly. Erase. That's exactly how it feels. That night, fueled by coffee and pie and too much hurt, I finally mailed a letter to Lily. Baby girl, I don't want to be overwhelming. I don't want to be a burden. I just want to be your mama. I just want to matter. If I've hurt you somehow, please tell me. Don't shut me out. I love you more than life itself. I kissed the envelope before dropping it in the mailbox, as if that might soften her heart. But weeks passed. No reply. Thanksgiving came. The first one in years where my table sat empty. I made stuffing anyway, out of habit. Set 2 plates just in case. But no one came. I ate alone, tears soaking the turkey, and whispered to the empty chair across from me. Happy Thanksgiving, Jack. Looks like it's just us now. By the time winter rolled in, the cracks weren't cracks at all. They were full-blown fractures. My daughter saw me as a weight, my son-in-law saw me as a threat, and my grandson, sweet Joey, was caught in the middle, forced to hide his love for me like it was contraband. I told myself it couldn't get worse, that this was the lowest point. But I was wrong. The breaking point was still to come. By the time winter crept into town, I realized something painful. The cracks weren't just growing, they were swallowing me whole. Every missed call, every curt word, every hollow hug felt like bricks falling from a wall I'd spent decades building. And the hardest part? I couldn't tell anyone. Not Mabel, not the church ladies, not even my own heart without it twisting into a knot of shame. It was late one night when I heard them again. Lily had left her bedroom door slightly ajar while talking on the phone. Mark's voice was calm, almost clinical. She's too attached. She expects too much. I don't want her influencing Joey. We need to set boundaries. Lily's whisper hesitant. I know, Mark. But she gave everything for me. I can't just cut her off completely. Mark. You'll do what's best. She'll get over it. She always does. I pressed my hands over my mouth, tears running silently. My stomach twisted, hot and cold at the same time. The betrayal was no longer a possibility. It was happening, piece by piece, orchestrated behind my back. The next morning, Joey ran to me with the same wide grin he always wore. But when I reached for him, he hesitated. Mama says I can't stay too long, he whispered, his voice breaking. Mark says, Nana, don't make her mad. I clutched him, holding my tears back. My grandson, the one person who loved me unconditionally, now had to hide it. I whispered, It's okay, baby. It's not your fault. But my own heart ached like it had been cleaved in two. I tried again. Another dinner invitation, another attempt to reconnect. Lily arrived with Mark in tow, but she was tense, her smiles forced. He held Joey's hand the whole time, controlling the room like a general commanding his soldiers. At one point, I tried to share a story about Jack, just a funny memory about him dropping a bucket of sand on the porch, and Lily cut me off. Mama, can we not talk about that right now? Joey's tired and we've got homework to do. I froze. The walls of my apartment, already small, seemed to close in. My voice trembled. I'm just sharing a memory. Lily didn't answer. Mark's glare burned me. Joey looked down at the floor. That night, I cried in my kitchen, leaning against the counter as though it could hold the weight of my grief. Christmas was worse. Cards went unanswered. Gifts returned unopened. I spent the day baking cookies, wrapping presents, decorating my tiny apartment with lights that twinkled against the beige walls. But no one came. Not Lily. Not Mark. Not Joey. I ate my gingerbread alone, staring at a faded picture of Jack and I on the mantel. Merry Christmas, my love, I whispered. I hope the joy I had isn't gone forever. By now, Mabel was visiting more than usual, knitting and chattering like a hurricane, trying to pull me out of my despair. You can't save them, Mary, she said one afternoon, slapping the half-finished scarf on the table. You gave everything you had, and some people will still turn their backs. Doesn't mean you failed. You just love bigger than they know how to handle. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to feel that strength. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw Joey's shy glances, Lily's cold smiles, Mark's calculating eyes. Love wasn't enough. Not anymore. Then came the doctor's appointment. My blood pressure spiked dangerously. My knees swelled. My heart palpitated under stress. Mary, the nurse said, you need to slow down. Your body is screaming at you. I laughed bitterly. Slow down? I'm just trying to hold on to what little family I have left. The nurse's eyes softened. Sometimes the family we love isn't the one who shows up. You need to take care of yourself. I wanted to, but the truth was I didn't know how. It was a quiet evening with the winter wind rattling the windows. I sat by my lamp, staring at the envelope I had mailed to Lily weeks ago, still unopened. I whispered. I sold everything for her. Gave up my home, my peace, my future. And now she doesn't even see me. She doesn't even care. The house felt colder than the night outside. My chest ached. My hands shook. And I realized something terrifying. The cracks had become chasms, and the foundation of my life, my hope, my love, my sacrifices, was crumbling beneath me. I tried to hold on, Tried to believe that Lily would come back around. Tried to hope that the bond we shared, the years of sacrifices and love, could survive. But deep down, I knew the breaking point was near. The next act, when secrets would spill, betrayals would be undeniable, and even Joey's innocence would be tested, was coming. And I was standing at the edge, trembling, knowing that the storm was about to hit with full force. I never imagined a mother could feel this powerless. Not over a child, not over the life she helped build. But here I was, sitting on my porch in the Florida dusk, staring at the streetlights like they might offer some clue, some comfort. They didn't. It was a Wednesday evening when the call came. Lily's name flashed on my phone. My heart leapt, hope surged. "Mama," she said, voice clipped, hurried. "Joey's sick. Can you take him for a while?" "Of course, honey. Anything you need," I replied, already grabbing my coat. When I got to their apartment, Mark answered the door, his arms crossed. He barely looked at me. "Joey's upstairs. Don't do anything he doesn't like. And don't overstep," he said, his tone as sharp as a knife. I nodded, swallowing my pride. But inside, my chest burned. Overstep? I've raised this child, held this child, loved this child. I could never overstep. By late afternoon, Joey spiked a fever. We went to the urgent care clinic, and while the nurse checked him over, I held his tiny hand in mine. "You're okay, baby," I whispered. "Nana's here." He looked up at me, sweat-soaked and shivering, and said softly, "Nana, don't let them be mad at you." I held back tears. He didn't know half of what was going on, but he felt it anyway. The tension, the coldness, the way his mother's love was divided and rationed. Later, while helping him rest at home, I found Lily's notebook accidentally left open on the coffee table. She hadn't noticed I was reading it, and I shouldn't have. But the words jumped off the page. "Nana is too involved. Mark's right. I can't keep feeling guilty. We have our life to build. We'll do what's necessary to maintain control." Control. Not love. Not care. Control. My hands shook, and Joey tugged on my sleeve. "Nana, you okay?" I smiled through the pain. "I'm fine, sweetheart. Just tired." But I wasn't fine. The next morning, I found myself at Mel's diner again, the smell of burnt coffee and sizzling bacon filling my senses. I sat in my usual booth, hands wrapped around a cup of black coffee, trying to hold the fragments of my composure together. Patty slid a slice of pecan pie across the table. "Rough night, hon?" I nodded, tears escaping anyway. "My daughter, I don't know how to fix this. I sold everything for her. I gave up my home, my peace, and now she doesn't want me around." Patty sighed, sitting opposite me. "Mary, you can't fix people who don't want to be fixed. But you can protect yourself." Her words echoed in my mind all day. Even as I walked home through the crisp winter air, the street empty except for a few stragglers walking dogs. That evening, I returned Joey after school. I was lingering, trying to savor the last moments before he had to go back to Lily and Mark. I overheard them in the living room again. This time, the words clear, deliberate. "Mark, she's not part of this family anymore. She gave up her home, her money. Now it's time to step aside." "Lily, I know. But she's still your mother, Mark. Mark, she's a liability. Don't let guilt cloud your judgment. Joey comes first. She can't interfere." I felt my stomach drop. My lips went dry. This wasn't just distance. This was a calculated plan to erase me from their lives. Joey tugged at my hand. "Nana, don't leave me." I hugged him so tight it hurt, whispering into his hair, "I'm not leaving, baby. I'll always be here." But deep down, I knew the truth. The world outside our little hug was moving fast, and my place in it was slipping. Christmas came early that year. My small apartment smelled of pine-scented candles, cookies, and hot cocoa. I set the table for 3, myself, Joey, and Lily. But Lily called last minute. "We can't make it, Mama. Maybe next year." I forced a smile, pretending it didn't hurt, while Joey stared at me with big brown eyes. "Don't worry, Nana," he said. We can celebrate together. Just us. And for one small moment, there was hope. But even that glimmer felt fragile, like a candle flickering against a draft. Then one gray afternoon, a letter arrived in my mailbox. Not from Lily, but from Mark. Mary, we need space. You've given enough. Your presence is causing tension. Please respect our boundaries. Mark. I dropped the envelope, heart pounding. My hands shook so violently that the mail slipped to the floor. I thought of the house I'd sold, the life I'd traded for their future. I thought of Lily's first day at nursing school, my sacrifices, my hopes. And now it was like it had never mattered. That night, I sat on my porch with the wind biting my cheeks, staring at the orange glow of the streetlights. I whispered to Jack's photo on the mantel. I tried. I did everything I could. And yet they don't see me. They don't care. They've moved me to the shadows of their lives. And I realized, the breaking point wasn't just an event. It was a slow, creeping recognition that the love I had poured into my daughter, the life I had sacrificed, was being quietly dismantled before my eyes. I didn't know how I'd survive it. But I knew one thing. The storm wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The truth hit me like ice water. It wasn't just distance or indifference. It was active exclusion. My daughter, the child I had given everything for, had been silently reshaped by Mark's cold logic, his rules, his control. And somewhere along the way, Lily had started to accept it. My 70th birthday arrived quietly. I hadn't expected much. After all, the last few years had taught me that hope is a dangerous companion. But I had secretly hung a small banner over my kitchen sink. Just in case. The day passed. The phone remained silent. Not a call. Not a text. Not even Joey running in with a sticky drawing. I sat at my little table, staring at my mug of lukewarm coffee, wondering when hope had become a trap. The next week, Joey stayed late after school. I was helping him with homework when voices drifted through the thin walls. Mark's low voice. She's pushing boundaries again. You have to stop her before it gets worse. Lily's soft reply. I know, but she's my mother. I can't just erase her. Mark. Erase her. That's exactly what we need to do. She's destabilizing everything. Every word was like a hammer striking my chest. The love I had spent decades giving, the sacrifices I had made, they were being twisted into justification for my removal. Joey noticed my silence. Nana, are you sad? I forced a smile. I'm fine, baby. Just tired. He frowned, eyes wide and innocent. Mommy says I shouldn't spend too much time with you. My throat tightened. Oh, Joey. He pulled me close and whispered. I love you, Nana. I don't care what they say. And in that hug, I felt the tiny thread that was keeping me tethered to life. One small, pure light amid the darkness. Then came the email from Mark. Formal. Sharp. Clinical. Mary, we must insist that your visits with Joey be supervised. We cannot allow him to become dependent on your presence. Our family structure must remain intact. Mark. I reread it 3 times. My hands shook. My knees buckled. They were slowly erasing me and I couldn't stop it. I went to Mel's diner, clutching the letter like a lifeline. Patty poured coffee without asking. They're trying to push you out, I whispered. The ones I raised, the ones I gave everything for. Patty nodded. Honey, some people measure love in convenience, not sacrifice. But you know the truth. And the truth can't be taken away. Her words gave me strength I didn't know I had. But even with that strength, my heart felt like a fragile glass. Christmas came again. Lights twinkled in every window, neighbors shouted holiday greetings, and children laughed in the streets. I decorated my apartment, baked cookies, wrapped small gifts, and left a plate for Joey. No one came. Not Lily. Not Mark. I sat alone, gingerbread crumbs on my hands, staring at the ornaments, whispering, Merry Christmas, Jack. I hope you're proud. My health deteriorated rapidly. I could barely sleep. Hot flashes left me drenched, my heart raced, and the arthritis gnawed at every joint. Mary, the doctor said, if your stress continues, your health will fail. You must make changes. I wanted to shout, how? How do I change when the ones I love are erasing me? But I only nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. Then one night, it happened. I was sitting on the couch, Joey asleep in the other room, when I overheard the whisper of my own undoing. Mark, I've contacted the Medicaid office. It's time she moves into a facility. She's becoming a liability. Lily, but she's my mother. She gave everything for me. Mark, she's already given too much. It's for her safety. And ours. I pressed my hands over my mouth, shaking, tears streaming down my face. My life, the life I had sacrificed for my daughter, was being stripped from me. I spent the next few days in a fog. But even amid the despair, I felt a spark, small, fragile, but there. I began documenting everything, letters, emails, overheard conversations. I called Mabel for advice. You have to protect yourself, Mary, she said firmly. You're not just a mother. You're a human being. And you matter. For the first time in months, I felt a tiny glimmer of control. By now, the breaking point was undeniable. The letters, the whispers, the exclusion, it all added up to one stark truth. I was being systematically removed from my daughter's life. Yet amid the heartbreak, I realized something crucial. I still had Joey, I still had my memories, and I still had my own will. The storm was coming, yes. But I wasn't gone yet. I woke that morning with a heavy chest and a quiet, gnawing dread. I had spent decades believing that love could shield me, that sacrifice would be remembered, that family was unshakable. I was wrong. It started simply enough, a knock at my door. I opened it to find Lily standing there, expression tight, holding Joey's backpack. Mama, she said softly. We need to talk. I gestured for her to sit. What about, baby? Her eyes flicked to the floor. Mark, he's worried. About your health. About the apartment. He thinks you should consider a facility. A facility. The word fell like a guillotine. I laughed bitterly. So all the sacrifices, the house, the years, all of it leads here? Lily flinched. Mama, I slammed my hand on the table. You sold my home. I gave up everything for you. And now you're telling me I don't belong in my own life. Her lips quivered, but she didn't defend herself. Joey tugged at my sleeve. Nana, I don't want you to go. I held him close, feeling his warmth against the cold realization that my own child was going along with the plan. Shoo, baby, I whispered. I'm not leaving you, not without a fight. He looked up at me, big brown eyes full of trust, and I felt a surge of determination. I had to protect him, even if it meant standing against my own daughter. 2 days later, I received the official letter. Medicaid had reviewed my case. My apartment was no longer suitable, and I was recommended for placement in a licensed care facility. I sat on the floor, crumpling the paper in my hands. The life I had built, the years I had sacrificed, it all came down to someone else's definition of suitability. I thought of the cottage, the porch with Jack's initials, the ocean breeze, the sunsets. Everything was gone. And for a moment, I felt like I was too. I called Mabel, tears streaming down my cheeks. They're taking everything from me, Mabel. I don't know how to fight it. She paused, then said firmly, Mary, listen to me. You can't let them erase you. They can't take your memories, your heart, your love. You fight this. Don't let them decide your worth. I clung to her words like a lifeline. Even in my darkest hour, someone reminded me that I was more than their plan, more than their convenience. That evening, I confronted Lily and Mark at their apartment. Joey was in bed, thankfully asleep. I know what you're doing, I said, voice trembling. You're pushing me out, taking away my home, my freedom, my place in this family. Mark's jaw tightened. Mary, this is for your own good. You're not well enough to live alone. I laughed bitterly. Well enough. I raised this child with my own hands. I gave up everything. And now I'm too much for you to handle? Lily's eyes filled with tears. Mama. I didn't. Didn't what? I interrupted. Didn't what, baby? Let him convince you I don't belong. She couldn't answer. Her silence spoke volumes. I tucked Joey in one last time before I left. Nana's always here for you, baby. Always. He clung to me, his small hands clutching my shirt. I don't want you to go, he whispered. I know, baby. I know, I said, pressing my lips to his forehead. I would remember this hug forever. It was my tether to the world that still loved me. The day came. I packed what little I could carry, each item a fragment of the life I once had. Mabel held my hand at the door, whispering, "Keep your fire, Mary. They can't take that." As the car pulled away, I glanced at the street, at the little porch, at the life I had built and sold for love. It felt like everything was slipping away. But inside, a tiny ember remained. I realized then that the breaking point wasn't just about losing my home, or being forced into a facility. It was about being stripped of my identity, my sacrifices, and my right to belong. And yet, even in the darkness, even with betrayal at its peak, I still had my memories, my grandson's love, and the strength to survive. I didn't know how. I didn't know when. But I knew one thing. I would not disappear quietly. The facility smelled like antiseptic and old carpet. The kind of smell that settles in your lungs and never leaves. I walked through the sliding doors with a small suitcase, each step echoing against sterile walls. The sound of my life slipping further away. I pressed a hand to the rail as I was shown to my room, staring at the small window. Outside, a winter sky stretched gray and cold. The ocean breeze from my Florida porch felt like a memory I couldn't reach anymore. I whispered to myself, "This isn't the end. It can't be." That night, I sat on the edge of the narrow bed, staring at the beige walls, the single framed print of a field of tulips that didn't belong to me. Tears fell silently. No one to hug, no one to kiss, just me and the quiet hum of the heater. I found Jack's photo in my bag, pressed it to my chest, and whispered stories of the cottage, the sunsets, the days we'd spent laughing. It wasn't much, but it was mine. The next morning, my roommate Ethel shuffled in. She was small and wiry, with sharp eyes and a quick wit. "You're new," she said. "Don't worry, honey. They can take your apartment, but they can't take your sense of humor." I laughed through the lump in my throat. Humor was the only weapon I had left. Over breakfast, she told me stories of her own betrayals. Children who abandoned her, spouses who cheated, friends who vanished. And suddenly, I wasn't alone in my pain. Pain, I realized, could be shared. And sharing it could be a kind of armor. Nurse Hernandez was kind but firm. She measured blood pressure, reminded me to take pills, checked vitals. But she also listened. One morning, she asked gently, "Mary, do you have anyone outside?" I hesitated. "My daughter, my grandson." Her eyebrows furrowed. "And are they supporting you?" "No," I said, voice breaking. They're trying to erase me." She nodded. "Then it's up to us to make sure you still have life here. You still matter." For the first time in weeks, I felt seen. While unpacking, I found a small stack of letters in the bottom of my suitcase. They were from old friends, neighbors, even Lily, months old, unopened. I sat on the bed, tearing open the first one. "Dear Mary, we miss your porch stories. We miss your cookies. Don't let them take your spark." Tears streamed down my face. The world hadn't entirely abandoned me. Even if my daughter had, others remembered. Late that afternoon, I whispered to Jack's photo. I gave everything, and they still tried to erase me. Then surprisingly I laughed. A short, bitter laugh. "Well, they can try. But you can't erase a life lived with love." It was a small rebellion, but a rebellion nonetheless. One evening, I heard two aides whispering outside my room. "She's too stubborn. The family wants her to adjust quietly," said one. "Yeah, but she's holding on. It's almost heroic," said the other. I leaned against the doorframe listening. Heroic. That word warmed a cold corner of my heart. Maybe, just maybe, I wasn't powerless after all. Then one afternoon, Joey visited. He held my hand like a lifeline, telling me about school, his friends, and his favorite cartoons. "Mama says you can't stay too long," he whispered. "But I don't care. I love you." I held him tight, memorizing the feel of his small hands, the warmth of his breath. For a moment, the facility felt like nothing but a temporary shadow. I whispered, "I'll fight for him. I'll fight for us." Isolation is a strange teacher. It strips you bare, forces you to face yourself in ways you've avoided. But even in the sterile hallways and cold walls, I found pieces of strength I hadn't realized I possessed. I had lost a home, yes, and felt betrayed by those I loved most. But I hadn't lost my heart, my spirit, my memories. And sometimes, even the faintest ember can light a fire. The first week in the facility was the hardest. My room felt like a cage, the walls echoing every memory of the life I had lost. But I started noticing small things. A sunrise spilling gold through the blinds, the sound of laughter from the common room, the rhythm of footsteps in the hallway. Life moved on, even if I felt frozen. One afternoon, while unpacking the small bedside drawer, I found a tattered notebook that didn't belong to me. Curiosity got the better of me. Inside were letters, confessions, even some unsent notes to family members. One letter caught my eye. I wish I had told her the truth sooner. I never wanted to hurt her. I just didn't know how. I paused. Could it be from Lily? A hint of guilt I hadn't seen before? My chest ached with a mixture of hope and dread. Sometimes betrayal is not all black and white. Sometimes it hides in the gray of misunderstanding and fear. Mabel called me on a quiet Thursday. Her voice was brisk but warm. "Mary, I've been thinking. Maybe it's time you reclaim something for yourself. Not for them. For you." Her words lingered like sunlight on my skin. Reclaim for myself. The idea had seemed impossible just weeks ago, but now, maybe it was necessary. She sent me a package. Old photographs, letters from neighbors, even a small shell from the beach cottage. I ran my fingers over it, remembering warm sand beneath my toes, salty wind in my hair. It reminded me that life, no matter how much it tried to erase me, still contained pieces of joy I could hold on to. One evening, I overheard a whispered conversation between two staff members. "She's remembering things, photos, letters. She's starting to talk to the other residents about the cottage. Yet it's almost like she's organizing them. Like she's claiming her past back." A spark of something wild, something defiant, ignited in me. Maybe Mabel was right. Maybe I didn't have to accept erasure. The facility offered art therapy once a week. I signed up hesitantly. At first, I just colored, staying within the lines, my hands shaking with uncertainty. But then I picked up the paintbrush and let the colors flow. Blues of the ocean, golds of the sunsets, reds of autumn leaves in Florida. On the paper, the cottage came alive again, the porch, the swing, the memories of Jack. By the time I finished, tears ran freely down my face. But I smiled too. I was still here. I was still creating. One day, a small envelope arrived, hand-delivered by Joey. "Nana, I drew you a picture. I love you. I don't want you to go." Inside was a crayon sketch. Nana on the porch, holding a little boy's hand, the ocean in the background. I clutched it to my chest. Even in their attempt to erase me, Joey had not forgotten. My love, my bond, could not be taken. I started noticing little things. A neighbor's smile, the way the sun slanted through the window in the early morning, the warmth of coffee in my hands. I learned to joke with the aides, tease Ethel, and share stories in the common room. I realized that life could still hold moments of happiness, even in the shadows of solitude. One afternoon, I even laughed aloud, startling a few residents, but feeling alive for the first time in months. I began documenting everything: letters, overheard conversations, even notes to myself about my time here. It became a ritual, a way of reclaiming my voice, my story. The staff noticed. They encouraged it. They said it helped other residents feel seen too. For the first time I realized I didn't need Lily or Mark to validate my life. I still had my mind, my memories, and the power to hold my story as mine alone. The facility had grown quiet in the late afternoon, a lull between the hustle of lunch and the evening routines. I wandered down the hall, my hands trailing along the rail, letting memories wash over me like the tide. Even here, even in this sterile place, fragments of my past clung stubbornly to me. While helping Ethel rearrange her closet, I noticed a small, loose drawer in her dresser. She waved me off. "Mind it," she said. "Just old keepsakes." Curiosity gnawed at me. Later, when she dozed in her chair, I opened the drawer and found a stack of letters, forgotten notes from other residents, scraps of memories, even old postcards. One letter was addressed to Lily, but never sent. "Mom, I'm sorry for the way I treated you. I was scared, unsure, and foolish. Please know I never stopped loving you." I clutched it to my chest, my fingers trembling. Even amid betrayal, a tiny thread of understanding existed. Not everything was black or white. That night, I sat in the common room, sipping warm tea, when I overheard two aides speaking in hushed tones. "She's remarkable. Even here, she inspires the others. She refuses to fade." Yeah, I've never seen someone hold on to their memories like that. "She's got fire." I smiled faintly. Fire. That word stuck to me. I wasn't going to disappear quietly. I was alive. Even if the world had tried to erase me. Days turned into weeks. I found solace in small, deliberate acts. Helping Ethel organize her photos, teaching a new resident to knit, and sharing memories with anyone who would listen. Even the staff began to notice. Nurse Hernandez said, "Mary, you're like a lighthouse here. People gravitate toward your stories." It was strange but comforting. In the shadows, I was finding purpose again. Joey visited again, a little older, holding his sketchpad. "I drew you something, Nana," he said shyly. It was a painting of the beach cottage, the waves crashing against the shore, a small figure swinging on the porch. Tears pricked my eyes. Even as the world tried to erase me, Joey remembered. My love, my sacrifices, were not forgotten. I hugged him tightly, whispering, "Thank you, baby. You remind me who I am." One rainy afternoon, I received a package in the mail. Mabel had sent it, full of old photographs, letters from neighbors, and notes from friends. Each one was a reminder of my life before betrayal. My joy, my community, my family connections that weren't severed by fear or control. I spent hours going through them, laughing at forgotten memories, crying at moments I thought were lost. It was a reclamation of self, a declaration. My life mattered, even if my daughter couldn't see it. A resident named Clara, bedridden and usually silent, smiled at me for the first time in days. "Your stories, they make me feel like I've lived a little more today," she said. That simple acknowledgement made my heart ache and swell at once. I realized my presence, my stories, my laughter, my memories, still had weight, still had meaning. Even here, in the shadows, I mattered. Late one night, I sat by the window, staring at the gray sky. The facility was silent except for the soft hum of the heaters. I held Jack's photo, Mabel's letters, Joey's drawings. I whispered, "I may have lost my home. I may have been betrayed. But I still have me. And I will not be erased." For the first time in months, I felt a profound sense of clarity. My past was mine. My love was mine. My story, though scarred, was mine to tell. I never expected echoes to be so loud. Even in the quiet of my small room at the facility, the memories of the life I'd built, the cottage on the beach, Jack's laughter, the warmth of sun-soaked porches, resounded like waves crashing against my chest. I pressed my hands against the window pane, watching the gray sky stretch endlessly, and whispered to myself, this was my life. And it wasn't gone. It started with a call. Lily's voice came through the receiver, hesitant, fragile. "Mama, I miss you," she said, the words unpracticed. I froze. Every muscle in my body tensed. Could I trust her? Could I let the woman who had erased me for so long speak to me again? Lily, I said softly. I don't know if I can hear that after everything. Her voice cracked. I know. I didn't know how to be your daughter and still live my own life. I thought I was protecting you. Protecting us all. I was wrong. I swallowed a lump of grief and anger. You didn't just make a mistake, baby girl. You chose distance. You chose him. She was silent. I let her sit in that silence. The echoes of betrayal and lost love were still loud in my chest. Later, Joey came running into my room, holding a small piece of paper. Nana, I wrote this for you. I don't want you to leave, he said. It was a simple drawing of me and him, holding hands on the porch, sunlight spilling around us. I hugged him fiercely. I'm not going anywhere, baby. Not now, not ever. Even amid betrayal, the innocence and love of my grandson reminded me why I had fought, and why I still needed to find closure. Mabel's letters reminded me of the cottage I had sold. The waves, the smell of salt and sand, Jack's voice carried in every memory. I realized then, the cottage wasn't just a house. It was the vessel of my love, of my sacrifices, of a life I had poured into my family. And while the walls were gone, the love remained. I could carry it with me, paint it in my mind, whisper it to Joey, share it with anyone who would listen. Even if Lily had tried to erase me, even if Mark had dictated my life, I could never lose that part of myself. One afternoon, I overheard Mark on the phone with someone I didn't recognize. She's stronger than I imagined. I underestimated how much she means to Joey, to everyone. I wish we hadn't pushed her so hard. The words hit me like a wave. Relief? Not quite. But understanding. Even in betrayal, people can stumble toward acknowledgement. I whispered to myself, even if it's too late, the truth matters. I spent the next days collecting memories. With Ethel, I shared stories of Jack, of holidays, of afternoons at the beach. The other residents listened, captivated, laughing and crying alongside me. I began to realize, my life had ripple effects. Even in solitude, even amid betrayal, my love created warmth in the world. And that mattered more than any house, any sacrifice, any anger. I sat down at the small desk by my window and wrote to Lily. Not to beg, not to guilt, but to speak my truth. Baby girl, I loved you fiercely. I gave you everything I had. I have regrets, yes, but I also have memories and a heart that will always hold you. I forgive you, but I cannot let my life be dictated by your choices. I will continue to live, to love, and to remember. Love, Mama. I folded the letter, kissed it, and placed it in the mailbox outside. It wasn't reconciliation, not entirely. But it was my power returned, my story reclaimed. The morning sun filtered weakly through the blinds, casting pale light across my small room. I held a steaming cup of coffee, listening to the quiet hum of the facility. I was calm, but deep down, a storm of memories raged inside me. It was time to face them, at least in my heart. That afternoon, the door opened. Lily stood there, hesitant, her eyes red-rimmed. Joey clutched her hand behind her back, as if shielding me from more hurt. Mama, Lily's voice trembled. I gestured for her to sit. Do you have something to say? She swallowed. I don't know how to fix this. I never meant to hurt you. I was scared and Mark, he convinced me. I held up a hand. I don't need excuses, baby. I need truth. She nodded. I was wrong. I abandoned you when I should have held you close. I let him dictate our lives. I exhaled slowly. The words I had longed to hear, yet dreaded, finally arrived. Joey tugged at my sleeve. Nana, can we play cards? I smiled. Of course, baby. We shuffled the deck, laughing when I accidentally dropped a card. The simplicity of the moment, the laughter, the touch of his small hands, the shared joy, reminded me why I had fought so hard. Even in betrayal, even in solitude, these tiny victories kept the heart alive. Later, Mark appeared. His face was unreadable. I underestimated you, he admitted quietly. I thought I was protecting Lily, Joey, us. I see now. I made a mistake. I studied him carefully. It's not about mistakes anymore. It's about respect and trust. You can't erase me from our lives. He nodded slowly. The acknowledgement was fragile, but real. Not forgiveness yet. Not reconciliation. But it was a beginning. That evening, I sat by the window with Mabel's letters, Joey's drawings, and my old photographs. I realized something important. The house, the possessions, the sacrifices, they were symbols. But the real treasure was memory. Memory is mine. My love, my stories, my laughter. They can never be taken. Even betrayal cannot erase the heart that remembers. Joey climbed onto my lap, his little arms wrapped tightly around me. Nana, will you always be with me? I kissed his hair. Always, baby. I'll always be here, in your heart, in your memories, in the stories we tell. And for a moment, I felt a surge of hope. Even as my life had been shaken, I had left a mark on the ones I loved most. I realized that life isn't about never being hurt. It's about surviving the heartbreak, reclaiming yourself, and passing your love forward. I may have been betrayed, abandoned, even forced into solitude. But I was also resilient, remembered, and capable of loving without conditions. That was my victory. Weeks later, I organized a small gathering in the common room. Residents brought cookies, chairs circled around, and I shared stories of the beach, of Jack, of holidays that had once been perfect. The room laughed, cried, and remembered with me. For the first time in months, I felt fully alive. I understood then. Even in betrayal and loss, joy can be reclaimed, piece by piece. I've lived a long life, and if there's one thing I've learned, it's that love isn't always neat. It doesn't always reward us as we hope. Sometimes the people we sacrifice everything for, the children we raised, the family we cherished, make choices that break our hearts. I gave my daughter my home, my comfort, my peace, and I thought love would be enough. But it wasn't. And yet, through all the betrayal, through all the silence, through the moments I thought I'd been erased, I discovered something far more enduring. Myself. Resilience is not loud. It doesn't announce itself with a parade. It's quiet, stubborn, and sometimes messy. It's waking up in a sterile room and deciding that the memories you carry, the love you've given, and the lessons you've learned are still yours to hold. Forgiveness isn't about letting others off the hook. It's about freeing yourself from the weight of anger and bitterness. I forgive my daughter, not to justify what happened, but so I can live fully again. I can love my grandson, laugh with friends, share my stories, and create moments of joy that betrayal cannot touch. Life after heartbreak is not about returning to what was lost. It's about building something new. A morning coffee with a friend, a hug from a grandchild, a painting of a long-gone beach cottage. All of these small joys remind me that life continues, even when it feels like it's falling apart. To anyone listening, especially mothers, grandmothers, and women past 50 who feel overlooked or abandoned, your worth is not determined by the choices of others. Your story, your memories, your love, and your spirit are yours alone. Protect them, honor them, and never let anyone tell you that your life's sacrifices were in vain. If this story touched you, please share your own experiences in the comments below. Let's build a space where we honor these difficult, real emotions together. Give this video a like if it resonated, and subscribe for more raw, heartfelt stories of love, betrayal, and resilience. Click the bell so you never miss a journey like Nana's. And stay tuned for the next story. A grandma's heirloom stolen by her own blood, where family, memory, and betrayal collide in ways you won't forget.